Well, on Mother's Day, we're reminded to take the annual timeout, right? It's the annual timeout. We should be grateful every day, and all the moms said amen, right? We should be so grateful every day for our mothers, and yet, we have this annual reminder. And it's a special day, and it should be because we're honoring very special people in our lives. I love Mother's Day. And so, the truth is, though, is that we stop to celebrate Mom for everything she does, and not every day, for not only what she does, but what, that's seen, but also what's unseen, right? And depending on your stage of life, our gratitude shows up in a different way, and let me just kind of explain what I mean by that. Like, if you're in elementary school, which most of our elementary kids are not in here today, but we do have a few. If you're in elementary school, you've been working on a special Mother's Day gift for your mom. And, I don't know what that is, but whatever it is, you've been working on it, you've been crafting it, and you cannot wait to be able to give it to Mom on Mother's Day, right? In fact, you kind of already spilled the beans because you probably said something and, oh, I wasn't supposed to tell Mom. That's just kind of how kids roll, But they are just filled with anticipation to be able to say, Mom, here's your bean flour, or whatever they do, and we love you so much, and keep this for the rest of your life. And so, anyhow, that's what it looks like for those that are in elementary school. But for myself, and maybe many of you this morning, you do not have your mom here with you. She's away. She lives in another city. And so unfortunately, maybe you don't have her with you. Jody, you look very happy this morning. Mom was right next to you, even though she's from the great valley of San Luis, the San Luis Valle. That's where I'm from. That's my tierra. And so anyhow, it's good to see you here this morning, Peggy. But maybe your mom's away, and that's the case for me. And so we would long to be with them, long to just have a Sunday afternoon meal with them and gather around the house and grill and those kind of things. But we'll get on the phone, or we'll get on, Facebook with them, or whatever you do, FaceTime, or, if you're a millennial, I guess you'll do all that stuff. But we'll get in touch with them, right? And we'll have that. But maybe, and this is a little bit more difficult. Maybe this is for you the first year, or maybe you're reminded this year that Mom is no longer with us here on earth. And that's a very difficult moment. That's a difficult reminder that when we come to Mother's Day, and most people celebrate, it reminds us of the loss. And yet, although we take in all the memories, all the memories that we've had of our mothers who passed, or grandmothers who passed. I love dearly my grandmother on my mom's side. I was very close to her. She passed away over 8 years ago, and every Mother's Day, I miss her. Every Mother's Day, I have conversations with my mom. And ultimately, that's a very difficult moment. But here's what I would encourage you, if describes your situation today, is that you would make memory, that you would remind yourself of all the good times, the times you laughed, the times that she was upset with you, all the times that you had together. And though we wish we can have one more moment with them, one more conversation, one more celebration with them, let us be reminded of the great things that the greatness that they mean to us. And so, whatever the case, wherever you find yourself this morning, we want to take a moment to honor Mom, and to love Mom today. And as I think about mothers, I'm inspired by how God has uniquely gifted them. In fact, this is a little bit, this isn't planned or anything like this, but sorry, camera. Hopefully, you're following me. Look how cute. You know what I'm saying? Look how cute. In fact, it's not very cute when you're worshiping, you look down and you see something there, and it scares you because you're like, there's a little child there, or, I didn't know there was a baby sitting on the, and of course she's sleeping, she's awake. She's sleeping, she's awake. Sleeping, she's awake. Okay. But here's the thing about mothers. You guys are so amazing, so gifted, that even as a 6-year-old little girl, you were carrying a baby around, and you were caring for another human being, On the other hand, every 6-year-old little boy was caring for things, and he was like, This is going to go down, boy. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is how it goes, you know? And he didn't care if it was a doll. It was turned into a submachine Uzi. You know, how does this work? You know, get this thing going. It's like that. There you go. And, you know, that's every little boy, right? Amen. But mothers, you're amazing. You are amazing. God has gifted you, and I stand in awe. Don't tell Selah I just threw her doll like that. She will be upset, and Maddie is going to tell her. So your dad threw your doll. It was all in love. It was all in love. So the reality is they're uniquely gifted. They're amazing, and they set the example of such great character. That's what mothers do. And none greater than the character and of love and the concern they have for the children, the care that they give for us. And the Bible is filled with mothers who exemplified love in the most emphatic way possible. When we look to the Bible, there are so many examples. And I would like to take a look at one of those examples this morning. It's a unique story that displays the love only a mother can have. And I want to look through this story and really just pick it apart for a minute, and then, we'll be wrapped up, we'll be done, and we'll go celebrate Mom today. But this story comes from the Old Testament book of 1 Kings, and it displays the wisdom of King Solomon. It's a story that somewhere along the line, I remember hearing even as a child, even though I was not churched. I didn't grow up in church. I heard this story, and it intrigued me always. And the story is really a story that's kind of highlighting the wisdom of Solomon, but ultimately, for me, it highlights what we're talking about today. Motherly love is on full display in this story. It's a story that has, again, always intrigued me. And so let's pick up the story starting in 1 Kings chapter 3 and verse 16. 1 Kings chapter 3 and verse 16. It starts off, it says, "Now 2 prostitutes came to the king and stood before him." Kind of sounds like a bad joke in a bar, right? Like, there were these 2 prostitutes, you know what I'm saying? Like, but that's how the story starts out. It's pretty intriguing, you know. As I read that, I was like, man, I wish the story started out a little bit different, you know. Like, there was these 2 great mothers, and but this is how it starts out. So now 2 prostitutes came to the king and stood before him. One of them said, "Pardon me, my lord. This woman and I live in the same house, and I had a baby while she was there with me. The 3rd day after the child was born, this woman also had a baby. We were alone. There was no one in the house but the 2 of us." And so we're picking up the story. There's 2 ladies. They both have a newborn child. And for those of you that have newborns, I did see a newborn a second ago, or close to newborn. Man, yeah, right there. Look, that's not newborn. That's a little more past newborn. Babies are amazing. We love them. And recently, I thank God for social media. Sometimes, yesterday, I try to avoid it a lot because it's just too much information. And, then you look at your notifications, you're like, no, leave me alone. No. But one of the things that I do like about social media very much is that, a year ago, this day, what is it called? For this day, I don't know what it's called. On this day, thank you very much. And, on this day, and whether it was a year ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, depending on how long you've been on Facebook, and you see these pictures of your babies, and you go, I remember when they were that. So there's something amazing about children, babies, newborns, and here these 2 women, they each have one. Now, verse 19, it says, "During the night, this woman's son died because she lay on him. So she got up in the middle of the night and took my son from my side while your servant was asleep. She put him by her breast and put her dead son by my breast. The next morning, I got up to nurse my son, and he was dead." Whew. That's dark, boy. That's a dark story. You know what I'm saying? Like, you read this and it's just intriguing. It says, "But when I looked at him closely in the morning light, I saw that it wasn't the son I had born." And so here's what, first of all, you read this story and it's just like, this is not real. This is amazing what's happening here. Not amazing in a good sense, just like, wow. So, they both have their children, and one mother lays on her child, and wasn't that ever a fear, moms, for you? that was a fear for me, and I didn't even like, it didn't work that way. And I'm just like, do not put children, maybe that's why I don't like our kids. Even now, I'm like, I'm going to lay on you, and you're going to, like, suffocate. No. Probably because I have bad dreams, not bad dreams. I have these dreams where I start, like, choking people in my sleep, And Mary's kind of been on the end of that one day where I'm like, rear naked choke, I got it locked in, and she's like, what are you doing? In the middle of the night. She's like, wake up. And I'm like, stop moving. I'm like, yeah, that's happened. That's probably, anyhow, that's probably why the kids don't sleep with us. Thank God it was, she was able to defend and slap me around and tell me to go to sleep, and I don't even remember what happened, so that must have been how hard she hit me. Anyway, so back to where I'm at today. Like, that's got to be a fearful thing to think, I could, like, actually lay on my child and they would die, and that's what happens here. And of course, this woman wakes up and she realizes her son is dead, and so she goes and she makes the exchange, like mom would never know, and mama knows best and mama knows all, right? And so, like, she comes and she makes the exchange, and the other woman, she wakes up to a dead son, and she says, well, wait a minute, this doesn't seem right. And she does an examination in the full sunlight of the new day, and as she examines, she says, this is not my son at all. And isn't it ironic that, like, sometimes if you ever have met twins, have you ever met twins? Yeah? Okay. So you see twins, and to you, you don't know which one is which, right? You're like, no, I'm not sure. But mom knows, right? Mom knows by what they look like, possibly by how they smell. Mom knows all things. So anyhow, here's what happens. Verse 22, the other woman said, no, the living one is my son. The dead one is yours. But the first one insisted, no, the dead one is yours. The living one is mine. And so they argue before the king. And so can you imagine what this looked like? King Solomon is there, and there are these two women, and they're having an argument about whose son is living and whose son is dead. And then here's the wisdom of King Solomon. Verse 23, the king said, this one says, my son is alive and your son is dead, while that one says, no, your son is dead and mine is alive. He continues on and says, then the king said, bring me a sword. So they brought him a sword for the king. He then gave an order, cut the living child in two and give half to one and half to the other. What? Okay, let's read that again. Then the king said, bring me a sword. Yes? So they brought a sword for the king. He then gave an order, cut the living child in two and give half to one and half to the other. This is probably why I've heard this story, not because I was church, but because my mom was trying to teach me about, honesty and sharing and all those good things, because siblings never fight. Amen. They never fight over what's theirs and what's not theirs. And, thankfully, that doll is Selah's. If the girls decided they were going to fight over it, I would get a chainsaw out and, let's figure this out. Whose baby is this, And Mom would say, it's Selah's. I don't know why you're doing all that. You're crazy. So he gives the order. And in verse 26, this is where we see this aha moment. It says, the woman whose son was alive was deeply moved. I love that phrase. Was deeply moved out of love for her son and said to the king, please, my lord, give her the living baby. Don't kill him. But the other said, neither I nor you shall have him. Cut him in two. And we see like this aha moment of the story, right? Where all of a sudden will the real mom please stand up? Please stand up, And so the real mom, she stands up and she's like, nah, here's the deal, do not cut the baby in half. She says, in fact, she can have the baby. And isn't that the way it works with mothers? They're selfless and they're sacrificial and they have love for their children. And if it means losing their child, they'll actually give it away, as in this story. That's what mothers do, you know. When there's not enough food on the table, or when there's not enough love to go around for whatever reason, mom is the one that always takes the back seat, right? And I'm like, Mom, come, what? Like, especially Mary, I'm like, Mary, like, no, put yourself first for once in a while, you know? And she's like, well, moms, it's not in their DNA, right? Maybe some moms, but, you know, they're not here today. But it's not in their DNA, right? They want to put their children first. And really, that's what we see here, is that this mother, she steps up and says, look, she says, please, Lord, my Lord, give her the living baby, don't kill him. But the other said, neither I nor you shall have him. Cut him in two. She was really selfish in her response here. And then it goes on, reading in the story. It says, then the king gave his ruling. Give the living baby to the first woman. Do not kill him. She is his mother. When all Israel heard the verdict the king had given, they held the king in awe, because they saw that he had wisdom from God to administer justice. And so again, the highlight is this wisdom of Solomon. He's said to be the wisest king in all of history, and he's filled with such great wisdom. And in all of his wisdom, he does this. We see this story. But really, it highlights for me not only the wisdom of Solomon, but it highlights for me the love of a mother. Mothers will do anything for their children. Amen? They will kill, steal, cheat. They will beat somebody down. They will smile when they want to choke somebody. Mothers, that's just what they do, right? Like, they will put their children first. They'll do for their children no matter what it takes. No matter what it takes, they'll put them first. And so we see that highlighted in this story. We see the love of this mother, and she's deeply moved. And I don't know about you, but when I've seen mothers deeply moved by something, you better get out of the way, or this is going to get ugly, right? Like, your mom ever been passionate about something? Maybe not. My mom, I remember some passionate moments my mom had. I'll never forget, in the 5th grade, I was the most ideal student in the world. I had perfect grades, and I always sat at the front of the class. I sat at the front of the class because I was a troublemaker in class, and they made me sit there. And I had problems with my teacher, a lot of problems. And it was not. I was rebellious. I'll never forget, though, this teacher, she definitely mistreated me, And I had a cousin who was in my class, and she came, and she's like, tells my mom, like, that teacher just mistreats him. And I don't know, probably it was fabricated in my mind of how bad it was. But when Mom heard that Miss So-and-so was treating me wrong, woo! Right, wrong, or indifferent, it didn't matter. Mom came to the school, and I'm like, Mom, really, you don't have to. But Mom, okay, Mom, I'm coming. Now, I know nowadays, it's a different generation, but, one story that's so classic of my mom, and if you've been around me long enough, you've heard this story, especially at church. Hopefully I don't lose track of the other story I'm telling, but, I remember being like 13. I was cooler than cool could be. I was doing things I shouldn't have been doing, and I remember, waking up on some couch somewhere, not feeling too good because it was a long night, if you know what I mean. And I'm like, Mom, come pick me up. And it was early in the morning, like 6:30 or so. I don't know. It was early in the morning. And she's like, she says, start walking. And I'm like, you're not going to come get me. You always tell me that, start walking. And all of a sudden I walk in the door. I'm like, I thought you were supposed to meet me, Well, this time she came and got me. And I'll never forget, right there, main highway, Monte Vista, Colorado, Marsh School. I remember there was a crosswalk there, and I was, Mom, blah, blah, blah. She was telling me you should have been home, and I'm going to tell your dad, and whatever. And I'm lipping off to her, and all of a sudden there was a backhand out of nowhere. Whack! And it came with some authority, And I'll never forget my 13-year-old self. My lips instantly were fat, both of them. My nose was bleeding. And, she got it all in one shot. Bloody nose, fat lip, whack. You think I said anything after that? No. Went to my room, got some tissue. Don't tell Mom, don't tell Dad, Mom, whatever. But so you get Mom upset. She's going to go to the school. She's going to let them know, right? Deeply moved. You get a mother deeply moved, just like they say, don't mess with Mama Bear, right? Like you don't want to get between a bear and her cubs. You can get between Papa Bear and the cubs, and he's all good. He's like, they handle themselves. They're all right. But you get in between Mama Bear and the cubs, and it's game over, right? And so deeply moved. This woman is deeply moved. Now let me just kind of help the other mother out in the story for just a second, okay? Because I think for her too, she also had a love for her son. And any mother would go to desperate measures for their son, right? Now she experienced a deep loss, and she was heartbroken. And to fill that void of heartache and pain and loss of her son, she went to a desperate measure of being selfish and deceptive, and she did whatever she could to try to fill that void. Now, ultimately, it was not only selfish and deceptive, but it was one of those things that also was very inconsiderate of the other mother, right? But that's, and I just have to look to her and say, man, that's what mothers do, though. And I'm not trying to justify her. I'm just saying, she really loved her son, too. And this whole story reminds me, not that I'm justifying her actions, but it reminds me on both ends that when a mother is deeply moved, she'll go to there's no bounds to her love, right? There's no bounds to what she'll do. And, I realized that in my own life, my own mother. I realized that in the life of my wife. I realized that in many of you who I consider mothers and grandmothers to myself. I see that reality. And it reminds me of the love that's described in 1 Corinthians chapter 13. I want to look to those couple of verses here this morning. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, we see a love described in Scripture that is inspirational, but it's the love of a mother. It says love is patient sometimes. Sometimes it's not always patient, right? Well, it's always patient, but kids just don't do what you want them to do, right? And so love is patient. Love is kind. It says it does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. Just think about this. I love the description that we're finding. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. Man, that's the kind of love that this world needs, right? Because really, the love that we see in our world is a very self-seeking, selfish kind of love. It's always asking, what do I get out of this? In fact, I've heard it described, and I've described it like this many times. There are three Greek words to describe love. I'll give you them real quick, and here they are. It's eros, philia, and agape, and there's these three loves. The eros is where we get the word erotic, and so it's a very selfish, self-seeking, pleasurable type love. In fact, it asks this question. It asks, what do I get out of this? It's selfish by nature. The second one is philia, which is where we get the word Philadelphia, which is the city of brotherly love. And so it's a mutual, affectionate type love that says, what do we get out of this? It's a partnership type love. It's what do we get out of this? But then there's the third. It's the agape type love, the type love that we're reading about this morning, not only in the story of these two mothers, but also in 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Agape is the kind of love that doesn't, that really what it does is it's unselfish, it's not self-seeking. It's the kind of love that says in any relationship, what do you get out of this? And it's selfless. It's the kind of love that's being described right here. And again, so it's not eros and erotic asking, what do I get out of this? It's not philia, Philadelphia, asking, what do we get out of this? It's agape, it's selfless, and it's saying, what do you get out of this? And so that's the kind of love that we see in these mothers, in the mother in that story. That's the kind of love we read about here. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. Oh, trust me, love can be angered at times, but it's not easily angered. It's not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. And all of us went, whew, thank you, Jesus. Because you know y'all kept something from mom, right? I don't care if it was 13 or 23, 33. I mean, I don't know when it was. I don't know if it was when you were 6, but you all kept something from mom, right? And later on in life, you sat down and you said, Mom, remember that time? And you're like, and she's like, what about it? And all of a sudden, you saw the eyes, and you were like, just kidding, I didn't. And then she's like, no, tell me the story. What happened? And you tell her, and she laughs about it now. You're like, thank God she laughed about it now, you know. But she keeps, love keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. And the first part of verse 8 says, love never fails. Love never fails. Love never fails. Wow, what a description. What a description of motherly love. What a description of how God ultimately loves us. And so on this Mother's Day, as we read through the story of Solomon and these two mothers, and as we read through the story or through the description of love through the lens of 1 Corinthians chapter 13, I don't know about you, but I'm inspired. I'm inspired by the love of a mother. I'm inspired because ultimately what we see in the lives of our mothers is that they care for us deeply. And they're deeply moved in life. They're deeply moved from the moment of our birth. There's something that happens in the heart of parents that all of a sudden we're moved like we've never been moved before. You know, do you remember that? I know for me, I'll never forget when my daughters, all 3 of them were born, I was deeply moved by that. And so we're deeply moved. We're deeply moved by the birth. But then throughout our lives, there are moments where you feel compassion for your kids. You know, there are moments where your kids go through difficulty and all of a sudden you're deeply moved for them. And, some of you here, let me just say this, some of you, this is difficult for you. I just feel like I need to say this. This morning I'm talking about the love of a mother, and some of you it's very difficult for you because you've been wanting children of your own. And for whatever reason, you may not be able to, or you haven't been able to. And I would just say, take heart in God's peace today, if that's you. If maybe that's you online. I can't give you the answer to ease all of your pain and frustration with that. But just take heart, take peace, and let God minister to you today through that. Let His love touch your heart. Let His love touch your life. But ultimately, we're moved by our children. We're moved by them. We're moved. We're inspired by them. And so the love of mothers, the love of parents, it is inspiring. But it really, for me, is a description of God's love for us. It's really what it is. And I know for myself, like there's nothing in life that I wouldn't do for my kids. I would do everything possible to meet their needs, socially, physically, financially, spiritually, all of the above. I would do everything possible for them, which includes tough love. Tough love. But ultimately, I'll do anything for them because I love them, and that's the love of a mother. That's the love of God displayed here in human form. But as a takeaway today, I want to give you a takeaway and then wrap up with a few more thoughts. As a takeaway today, keep this in mind. God's love is reflected in the love of a mother. God's love is reflected in the love of a mother. And maybe you're reminded of the love of your own mother or your grandmother. Maybe for you, ultimately, you didn't experience the love of a mother from your mom, but you experienced it somewhere else in life. Maybe your mom was absentee. I love Tupac. Tupac said in his classic song, you know, it didn't always work out. But Mom, you were always there. Some of you don't know who Tupac is. He's not a prophet. He's a hip-hop artist. And you don't need to listen to any of his music because you'll get very confused about your pastor. But dear Mama, she may not have been there ultimately, but somewhere along the line, God brought you a mother. Maybe it showed up in the form of your wife. Maybe it showed up in the form of an aunt. Maybe reality, it didn't even show up in the form of a woman. It showed up in the form of a man, an uncle, a father figure of your life. But ultimately, God has given you and shown you that love. And for some of you, there might be a lot of hurt associated with Mother's Day because of that. But I'll just tell you that love never fails. People may fail us, mothers may fail us, fathers may fail us, spouses may fail us, children may fail us. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But God's love never fails us. His love is perfect. It's always there, and it's certainly here this morning. God's love. And so, God's love is reflected in the love of a mother. To every mom this morning, we say thank you. Thank you for your love, your support. Thank you for all that you do, both seen and unseen. You're the morning alarm clock. You're an encourager, a nurse, a costume designer, event planner, housekeeper, financial planner, head chef. You keep track of everything and everyone. Men, let me help you out. Don't look for your stuff. Just ask your wife. You'll save about 15 minutes in the morning. Mom, you're a comforter, a counselor, a listening ear when needed. You're the voice of reason at life's greatest crossroads. So we say to you, thank you. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for the love you so wonderfully express. Today we honor you as husbands, as sons and daughters, as grandchildren. We honor you. Can we honor mothers today?